White Student Transmission, a podcast dedicated to the needs of white students in every school and white peoples of every nation, providing resources, talking points, and having the important discussions that all white people should be having right now. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the White Student Transmission. I am your host, Dave, and today we are joined by our Twitter ally, The Devil Drives.
Hello.
Today we are talking about the leftist control of language. And I don't want you to view accusations of racism or offense to your remarks as real. Just view them as a strategy they use to run interference and obstruction. The left does not fight based on what's true or false. The left just makes up any argument they need to win their case. One tactic, they use the undefined terms of racist or hate speech, etc., to label what they don't like in order to silence it, thereby sidestepping our rights to free speech and blocking the counter-arguments. This is also known as using stigmatized labels.
Yes, and stigmatized labels are used primarily to lower your defense. So when you actually start talking about an issue, you're going to receive a stigmatized label, and then you're going to be defending yourself from it so as to not be called that label. But this is a way to distract you from the real issue that you're discussing. In this way, they can easily move the goalposts and you will lose the argument.
So let's give a brief overview of what controlling language entails. Distorting public discourse.
Okay, well, as you know, most speeches are given in a very free marketplace way. Mm-hmm. But when they actually start to attack a host culture, they're going to go after those outspoken people and their right to speak by calling them those labels that I mentioned. And in this way, they're going to mute or discredit or ridicule anyone who opposes their agenda. And when they do this, the host culture is essentially defenseless against their depredations. I mean, their attacks. They're relentless, and they will not stop until they're winning.
So that really breaks up the host nation's ability to speak and communicate with one another. Keeps the narrative one-sided.
Yes, and it might actually be to the detriment of the physical security of these host cultures, such as what's happening in France, Germany, the United Kingdom, places where there are hate speech laws in place, and they greatly limit their citizens' right to speak out against what's happening over there.
So the real purpose was to stop people from speaking in public and stop that communication. It's not really that it was racist or offensive. They just want to block that communication. What about changing the meaning behind terms?
It's a strategy. It's an old strategy, really. It comes from the Roman Empire. But Marxists have used this to shroud their actual intent behind words that have a respectable veneer. For instance, the concept of social justice came around in the aftermath of the Second Industrial Revolution, and it was for the Catholic communities to find a way to cope with this post-agrarian society. So they used to live near farms. Now they live in the cities where factories exist and their employment is. And this was and Marx took this term and turned it into a compulsory redistribution of wealth and privileges amongst all the people, but so as to destabilize and maybe destroy the current paradigm, in this case, the early capitalism.
So originally, social justice would encourage me and my community to get together and give, whether that be clothes or food, to the needy. But Marx kind of took that and perverted it and changed it into redistributing people's wealth without their consent.
Yes, exactly.
What about soft censorship?
Well, soft censorship is a term to represent the way that Marxists initially attack the right to free speech in countries that do have it. For instance, they were going to label some speech as problematic or troublesome or prejudiced against minority communities, and they're going to do this so as to turn public opinion against the people who do speak truths or untruths, depending on your perspective. And they're going to isolate these people and discredit these people, and eventually they're going to tighten their grip on language by passing laws that amend to the Constitution, or they're going to add things to your criminal code. And eventually, this is going to result into a police state where your speech, either via the internet or in real life, is going to be actively policed and surveilled. And you're going to be dragged out of your home and probably disappear in the way that people in the Soviet Union disappeared.
So it starts small, but they kind of add on a piece and then another piece, and they tighten the screw a little bit, and before you know it, you've been walked step by step from a society where you had free speech one time to one where you can get arrested just for making the wrong remark. Let's speak in terms of what students should watch for inside of the classroom. Now, if you have one of these Marxist professors who's baiting you, what should students look for?
They should look for mockery. They should look for bait. They're going to make remarks to draw out your emotional response. And by doing this, they're going to bring you out into the open to say something defiant to them. And they will proceed to use their often fake statistics or doctrinal beliefs to discourage you and destroy you in front of your peers. They do this because they know they have the upper hand in the classroom and they control discourse there. So when their business is to indoctrinate, they're going to single out the people who can oppose them and destroy their capacity to argument, so they win every time. And this, in the eyes of the other students, will make him greater than the person who holds the other viewpoint. So what you need to look for, these statistics, and you have to constantly and respectfully and unemotionally question the methodology, the research done, and to ask to view said research, and to weave criticisms that allow you an even footing with your professor and maybe allows you to diffuse what he's saying to your colleagues.
So, to reiterate, when I evaluate them, I don't think of them as regular people. I think of them as attorneys. And their goal is to take away your ability to defend yourself by keeping you from being able to speak. So, the analogy I use is if you have two attorneys in a courtroom, one will make an accusation and then block the second one from even being able to defend themselves by claiming all of their remarks would be offensive or racist or whatever. That way, the first attorney, by default, will then win that argument. For student action on this, don't let people block you from using specific words or terms to communicate your message. When they try to block what you're saying by claiming it's racist or offensive, tell them that you need to know the criteria that they use to determine if something will be called racist or offensive first before they can block what you're saying. But also remember to use their own criteria back on them. Would you recommend any reading for students regarding this subject?
Yeah, The Progressive Virus by Anthony Napoleon and Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I also have, as an optional reading, you can read Arthur Schopenhauer's Art of Controversy. These are the 38 strategies that Marxists like to use against you to move the goalposts and win the argument. They are all made in bad faith, so you need to learn those to be able to fight those.
Definitely good advice. Remember, view this as a tactic that they're using against you simply to win an argument. Read up on the tactics, learn how to counter-argue so that they don't win the case by default. I want to thank you for joining us today, DD.
No problem.